One of my least favorite things there, and I actually just had to address this with a client the other day. I loved it because we had a very direct conversation.
Yeah.
The statement of, I take what's necessary, but I want to keep my length. You know what's triggered with a hairstylist hears that? It's, I'm prioritizing my length at all costs. And if you cut too much, you are now scissor happy. And I just wrote this down in my notebooks. Like, I'd rather be scissor happy than not give the service that my client paid for. But when somebody does ask, like, bring that statement to me, I now stop and ask them, what is your priority? Because you can't give me two competing priorities.
I'm not afraid to write a brand new story. And what changes find a way to me, I can keep it moving. I'm not afraid to celebrate my glory. And when challenges grace my path, I know I can face another day. Inside, I rise, daring to learn. With Fox After 40.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Fox After 40. We focus on all things women's wellness from head to toe. Today, we have a good friend of mine and stylist, expert stylist here, Aeleise Ollarvia. And we already did a part 1, so make sure you check it out, where it's all about hair after 40 and then just the story of the natural hair movement and how we landed here today over the last couple of decades. But there's a little bit of tea in the interwebs going on in the curly hair, tight texture space. And I really wanted to bring Aeleise on the pod just so we can, maybe just talk about expectations with your stylist and the relationship you might have with your stylist, and if you're sitting in the chair, being able to communicate your feelings to your stylist and things like that. We've all been to the salon where we had a bad hair day, you know what I mean? A bad haircut, a bad hair dye, a bad braids, whatever, you know what I mean? You spent the money, you thought you were gonna get something else, you got something else, and you didn't say anything about it either. So, and I'm not saying that for anyone in particular, but I've been in that person in that chair. I've also been the person that got up out of my chair when I didn't like what they were doing, and half my hair was done. Okay, literally half for my graduation in college. And I had to go back and do my own hair in my dorm room. That was the most traumatic thing I'd ever experienced. I literally went in, I was getting relaxers back then, and I was shampooing, and I had went to the stylist. And mind you, this is not curly hair, right? This is relaxer. I went to the stylist with shampoo to condition hair, and I think was it even blown out? It might have been blown out. I had done most of the work. I just wanted it like a silk press for my graduation, 17, 18. The stylist literally took my hair out of everything, started shampoo, condition it, tangling it all back up, and then tried to detangle it with a rat tail comb. And I literally just hear it like in my hair, and I was like, this is not how you do. And she was just like, you in my chair, you gonna do, and she started like cussing me out. I was like, time to go. And I got up and left.
Good for you.
And Aeleise, that was hard for me to do as somebody who was 18. I was like 20, graduating, like 20 years old at the time. So hard for me to do because I was sitting there listening and go, and thinking, and nobody, and mind you, it was an old school salon too. So, we got the fancy salons now where like the fancy dryers and the luxury experience and it's elevated.
Now you were on 63rd, 87th, and 95th.
Girl, no, I was, it might as well have been. I was in my college town.
Oh.
And this is the only black salon in my college town, U of I. And it's a stylist I had never worked with before. And it was like the old school beauty shop. It's stuff going, it's steamy, it's smoky, it's loud music, it's just not like fancy at all, you know what I mean? And I was just like, well, surely everybody knows how to do a silk press. This is not a big deal.
No.
And I remember going there, I was like, oh, I'll never do that again. You know what I mean? I didn't necessarily, and that's an experience I'll keep sharing because it was just so traumatic for me.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily like call the lady up or anything like that, or I didn't necessarily like do anything. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't do anything. I didn't activate on that moment. I just was like, whew, I'm glad I got out of there before it was like irreparable damage done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then at one time, I had my cousin, I told you earlier, who was in hair school, and she was learning how to cut hair, but she learned how to cut hair on straight hair. And I went with my long, curly, kinky hair long, and I was like, hey, I want a taper. And she was trying to taper it with the thin rat tail comb where you go up like this and you go.
Oh.
She gave me a big chop.
Yeah.
A very big chop. And I remember my mom like, girl, you got a natural haircut company. Why your hair look like that? And I was like,
No.
Ma, dang. And so those are like probably my two worst experiences with hair that made me start investing in a $200, $300 session with a stylist because it was too expensive to get a bad one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's when I met you. And so you're one of my favorites, at least, if not my favorite, just because of the way that you educate the community, the way you've been in service of both consumers and brands for over a decade, and the way you approach it. I appreciate you and Aisha and like all the things that you guys have done for the community over the years. I know you guys are stylists, snarky, so I know y'all can like press buttons sometimes for sure. But I do remember being in your chair and feeling like I could speak up.
Yeah.
You may have a snarky comment back, but it wasn't like I can't speak. It was more like, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? And I remember showing you a picture of a girl's hair that I wanted. He's like, girl, your hair don't do that. Okay. But we can make you look beautiful and love your curls and get something that works for you, but your hair is not going to achieve this style just yet. So I would love for you, Aeleise, to kind of talk about what is the hot button topic right now? And like, how do we get here? And then just your experience from like having clients behind the chair and things like that and what you've seen and like how we move forward, you know?
Ooh, there are so many hot buttons right now. I feel like I'm like right in the center of them all. And as somebody who doesn't really engage in content, I am really giving a high level overview because I've spent I've spent my entire career talking on the phone, FaceTime, in person with people, but I spent a lot of time in this last month. And what I'm finding is we have so many sources saying different things. Or how about this? We think they're saying different things. And what I find with a lot of folks who I come to my chair or see me online, people have been looking for a pat solution for natural hair. And the cornerstone of the education I've always given is there is no one path.
Oh, a path solution?
A pat.
What is a pat?
Pat solution meaning like, here's A, here's B, here's C, here's D. Oh. Here's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I believe in frameworks. And in that framework, we understand what a shampoo does. We understand what a conditioner does. We understand what a styler does. And we understand and observe our hair. We understand the foundation of hair because no matter curly, straight, wavy, whatever, hair is still a keratinized protein fabric that has a cuticle, a cortex, and a medulla.
Right.
And there's just foundations that are laid there. But the frameworks that I provided, the frameworks that other educators have provided, is that we are taking into account what we have available to us in terms of products and what we have available to us in terms of what our hair is doing right then and there, the condition of our hair, the lifestyle that we live with our hair, the climate our hair is in. And inside of those frameworks, there is no singular solution. It is up to us as stylists and as consumers to understand what is happening at every given moment. One of the best things I tell my clients in person is every single wash day, you're evaluating what you've done since your last wash day. What is the condition of your hair? What have you used in your hair? And what do you want to achieve? And so there's a lot of fighting and bickering because the internet loves to play telephone. And there's a lot of impression that things were said that at least weren't said by myself. And I cannot be responsible for how people receive things and how they take them and how they use them.
So one thing I want to mention, what you're talking about is just like if you're at a doctor, there's a certain way that the body functions, right? Like when you eat food, how your body digests food. And that's what you mean by like there's a certain way that your hair works. Your hair has a medulla, a cortex, all the things. And this is like your hair. But there are different types of doctors for the different types of treatment that you want, right? You might want a naturopathic doctor. You might want one who's going to prescribe you, medicine. You know what I mean? It could be natural medicine. It could be, synthetic medicine, whatever. And people should see stylists the same way.
Yes, people should see stylists as the fact that, number one, in cosmetology school, there is great inequity. So I will say I had an amazing education at the school I went to. I was in Florida. It was 1,200 hours. We learned hair care foundations. We learned hair cutting. We learned hair color before we left. But even with that great foundation, it still took me about 5 years to understand the why behind hair cutting. I've been teaching professionals direct for the last 7 years. And what I find is that the students that I was teaching 7 years ago are very, very, very different from the students I've just taught this last year, to the point of where when we think about, there's a lot of cosmetology schools that have closed because their graduates were not getting jobs or were not staying in the profession. In 2020, 2021, a lot of schools were virtual. Folks have been transitioning their specialty. So maybe they were a silk press specialist or a weave specialist. Now they're coming into kind of industry cutting, industry color. And so the stylist, again, that I taught in 2017 is not the stylist of 2020. And each year we have evaluated how to shift and change. Yeah. And that shift and change has included so much more fundamental work than we've ever had to do, because that fundamental work is necessary.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Fox After 40 and want to get notified about the next episode when it drops, make sure to go to CurlMix.com and sign up for our mailing list. We'll notify you whenever a new episode comes out. And one of the things that you've done, Aeleise, that I think is really interesting is you pay for education outside of just what you got in cosmetology school.
Absolutely.
So you were getting educated, I think you had done like a Diva Curl salon. I've
done 3 of those classes.
Oh, really? Okay.
3 of those classes, plus classes with other cutting artists. I've done color classes. I've done the complete gamut of what was available from Aveda pre-2011. I still take classes. Like I have some of the classic cutting from Sassoon and Orojo and Aquage on DVD.
What is that? I'm sorry.
These are companies that are deep within the foundation of hair cutting.
Okay.
Of just straight hair.
Okay.
That I'm actually about to go buy myself a DVD player so that I can go back to the DVDs that I watched 15 years ago. Just because I want to go back to some razor cutting fundamentals. I want to go back to some line, shape, and form fundamentals. And so one thing about cosmetology school, it teaches you the foundation. Think of cosmetology school as 8th grade and how 8th grade prepares you for high school. And when you come out of school, you go take classes. And so those classes are like you going to high school. And then as you finish that kind of type of classes, and then you go put that into practice in the salon, then you go back for the next level like college. And so one thing about just as any other profession, hopefully, there's a never-ending amount of learning that happens because you see things differently from different perspectives of where you are in the industry. And unfortunately, and I hope to change this in the future, is that cosmetology education becomes so much more comprehensive of curl patterns, of textures, of cutting, of 2-dimensional cutting, of 3-dimensional cutting, of color, which is same but different when applied to straight hair than applied to 3-dimensional hair. And so even as somebody who's been licensed for almost 20 years, I'm still learning. And I hope that all stylists start to think about that the same way. But I get that clients come to the salon like, you should know. Now, number one, yes, we know hair, but clients are the experts on their own hair. And this is why the stylist-client relationship is so important, is that both people have agency to be able to ask for certain things. One of my least favorite things there, and I actually just had to address this with a client the other day. I loved it because we had a very direct conversation. Yeah. The statement of, I take what's necessary, but I want to keep my length. You know what's triggered with a hairstylist hears that? I'm prioritizing my length at all costs. And if you cut too much, you are now scissor-happy. And I just wrote this down in my notebooks. Like, I'd rather be scissor-happy than not give the service that my client paid for. But when somebody does bring that statement to me, I now stop and ask them, what is your priority? Because you can't give me 2 competing priorities.
You know what's crazy? What? I probably would still say length. And that's so, I know that's so toxic.
It's so common to hear length.
It's so toxic. I know, because you're like, girl, that's like saying you're going to stay with a man who ain't treating you right. Because it's like, because I'd rather have a boyfriend. You know what I mean? And
you said it, I didn't.
and that might be the case, but I like my length. So
and as a service provider, it is not my job to bully a client into doing something they're not ready for. That's always been against my code of ethics. And so it's just like the same conversation I had with this client last week was, All right. Here's what absolutely necessarily got to go today.
Okay, I feel that.
But it was still
the whole time I need a trim right now, but we're not gonna get that. We're not gonna talk about that because
it's all right.
I think I look good. So
and I just cut my own hair, so
right. I'm like, I'll do a trim here or there, but my ends could be. I could get a shape, but I'm okay. I'm so cute. Like,
and but as someone who has worked in the curly hair world, in the natural hair world for so long, I know that this is the mindset, and so many stylists who do actually focus in that realm, and who are passionate about working with naturals where they're at.
Yeah, we
end up in that space of compromising our own technical work and our own artistic work.
And your reputation.
And my reputation.
Because if I send you out here looking a certain way, people are gonna be like, well, at least did her hair. And then you're gonna be like, see, and I didn't, they're not gonna hear the conversation that y'all had.
That we actually had in the midst of the situation. And so there's so much nuance.
Yeah.
There's so much nuance to that relationship. There's so much nuance to even just being a Black woman going to the salon. Just like you said with your experience, it's hard to stand up for yourself. It's hard to be on equal footing with someone you may not feel like you should be on equal footing with.
Well, it's also like, it's like a doctor, right? If you're telling me I need heart surgery, right, and it's going to compromise these other things, and I'm saying, no, don't give me the heart surgery, give me something else. It's like, I don't want to argue with the doctor because the doctor knows more than me. They've seen more cases there, but ultimately I don't want you to cut my chest open. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really a delicate conversation. It's really hard. And then hair is 60% of your face. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
It is. It's the thing that people first see when they meet you. It is a sign of health. It is like, it's like, I know we like to think that it's like just an accessory, but like it's actually a big deal. Like it's a big deal.
But honestly, I think accessorizing is a big deal. It's a huge part of who I am and how I show up in the world, especially after 40.
Yeah.
When I was getting ready last night, I was like, okay, I got to get something colorful. I got to get something textural. I like this type of silhouette. This is my makeup. This is my jewelry, because this is how I show up. This is how people get my impression. So I get that. Your hair really is 60% of it. I spent I dedicated my time yesterday to set this twist out just right.
See, you already know.
But in that, it's so important for us to, number one, understand where our hair is beginning. Even when we just started our relationship with a stylist, is where is our hair starting? It's important for the stylist to be clear with the client about that, because so many stylists as a profession are taught to be people pleasers. Okay. We're taught to not go against what a client has said they want. So we don't ask the right questions. We don't consult properly.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, if you were looking for a stylist, what are the steps I need to be doing to vet them?
Number one, do you like their work?
So I'm looking at Instagram to see if they're posting their work, right?
I'm not even necessarily looking at Instagram, because honestly, I'm just being forthright, there are so many stylists that don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to be a part of any of that. And as someone who has been in that world for the better part of 10 years, I don't want any part of it either.
What do you mean, a part of what, posting your work?
Yeah, not at all.
How do you get
not posting your work on social media? So for a lot of stylists, they get clients by word of mouth. The same way stylists were getting clients before social media. Yeah, they're getting them now. Somebody stopping them on the street, loving their hair. Somebody having a direct referral. Somebody talking about somebody else. And so there are plenty of stylists who are very successful, who have either been in the social media streets and completely opted out, or just never got in there in the first place because they never saw a benefit, both internally, mentally, or even to their businesses.
So how am I vetting someone then?
So you're vetting somebody, you're looking, number one, do you have a referral?
Okay.
If you do have a referral, hopefully they have some sort of presence. I'm not saying they need to be involved on social media. I'm talking about a website. I'm talking about possible print work. If they don't have that, you can email them, call them, say, do you have a portfolio? Because oftentimes stylists will have a portfolio. It just may not be anywhere accessible to you.
Okay.
And I teach this to stylists too. It's like, we complain about things, but we have to have a platform. But there's always this, it's a tug of war about how much do you want to show up? How much do you want to put yourself out in the public? Because people will take your client photos and disrespect your clients.
Yeah.
So at that point, we're probably going to find that so many of our people who have braved social media no longer want to brave it.
If you've gotten any value from listening to Fox After 40, you learned a beauty tip, you've gotten advice, you shared the episode with a friend, please do us a favor and leave us a review on Spotify and Apple. It goes a very long way in helping us continue to build the podcast. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. So you know what's really interesting? I've seen a couple stylists, ones who I'm, close with or respect or have worked with or, would recommend, saying that they're getting out of the the textured hair space.
Absolutely.
And I wonder, what is leading that? What is driving that?
It's the rigidity.
The rigidity.
It's the rigidity.
Can you explain?
Of that, going back to that needing a step A, step B, step C, step D, of not being open to what's happening to you personally. Not this prescribed. And I raise my hand and say I am probably the cause and the fault for bringing education to the consumer market via Black Girl Curls, which I am no longer part of. My former business partner is. But it was in the spirit of bringing what was happening in the salon to the public for education. And that same education which was nuanced as all get out, lost its nuance. And in that, it became no longer fun to do our jobs.
I felt that.
And I don't blame anyone wanting to get out of the texture space, because to be in the space, number one, is a passion. Because if I was doing short hair, relaxed hair, or I was doing straight hair bobs, I could do a client an hour, client every 45 minutes. I could have
it's like a C-section. It's like,
boom, 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 boom.
Get them out. Yeah.
Get them in, get them out. Everybody's cute. Nobody's like, we're not having an entire like crises about our hair. It's cute. We're done. We're going. It's a labor of love when you're spending 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, sometimes hours one-on-one with someone who possibly is complaining about the price, who's possibly working to accept what's happening with their hair, whether they're taking the advice, not taking the advice. There's so many aspects of it that when we think about the stress we've been under since, say, 2020, and the stress that we are now likely going to be feeling going forward, folks want to press the easy button. Yeah. Folks really want to press the easy button and say, hey, this is more established. This is standardized. This is simple. This is lucrative. The other side of doing textured hair. And so we are going to lose some of the recipes. We're going to lose the people who really care. We're going to lose insight. And I don't blame them. I'm one of them.
One thing I feel like when I first heard about what was going on, I kind of didn't pay attention a lot to it, because I remember I was like, oh, it's just, I feel like you're not really big until you get crucified. Like, like my time is coming, and I'm afraid of it, but I know it comes. You know what I mean? Like, you have a rise and then you have a fall.
That is such a great way to think about it.
Like, and the thing is, though, I think I have to, and I'm so careful with picking a side on anything, because I just know there's so much. One, I was never there, right? So I don't know what happened, right? But I know everybody. But then two, there's a rise until there's a fall, or and eventually it'll pass and people get over, and then people will move on. But I know that you've helped thousands and hundreds of thousands of women. You know what I mean? And so I think I also want to acknowledge that. You know what I mean? Like, it is a labor of love. You're right. Like, you don't have to work in textured hair. I credit my natural hair journey or my wash and go journey to you, because I just wouldn't have done it. Like, I didn't think my hair curled, And I know I've been able to help millions of women because you helped me. So, right? And so, like, if I hadn't done it, I would have never when I met you, Aeleise, I didn't really believe my hair curled. Then I figured out how to make flaxseed gel, but I wasn't doing wash and goes with the flaxseed gel. I just this is just a natural gel. Do whatever you want to with it. And then I found out that people were using it as a substitute for Diva Curl because it was cleaner. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, people want to use flaxseed gel for wash and goes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on this. And I was like, well, Aeleise did my wash and go, and she showed me how to do it. I'm going to figure out how to do my wash and go with this flaxseed gel. And then that was kind of like the birth of CurlMix, if you will. And that enabled me. Now, and I realized, I know you kind of have a teaching of like no oils and butters, but for me, my tightly textured hair, it would feel sometimes too dry. And so there are certain times when I want definition for days and I'm going to be in Atlanta, I don't use our gel. I use our quinoa gel that doesn't have any oils and butter in it because I'm like, it needs to last in Atlanta and Florida and whatever. I'm in Chicago, I'm using our traditional formulas with the moisture, with the avocado oil, with the castor oil, things like that, because my hair is drier in Chicago. So it's not going to be a problem. But you're right. You have to, I know my hair. I know what I'm trying to achieve, but that also comes from having done my hair 1,000 times, you know what I mean? And having to teach other people how to do it. But I know that because you taught me, I was able to teach millions of other women about their hair. And they may or may not even use CurlMix anymore. They may be like, oh, I don't like this formula, I want to use something else. But like, it's that to each one in the industry. And I just want people to think about that, you know what I mean? Like having a bit more empathy. And then on the stylist side too, you're just trying to help. Like at the end of the day, you know what I mean? You're trying to help. It's not even purely about a money grab. You know what I mean?
It's been a beautiful journey, and I really appreciate you for sharing that, because sometimes I do lose track because I got in it for the love of it. I got in it for the love of it. Number one, I never wanted to be in corporate America. And I was doing all the natural hair like services, but I got into it because folks kept asking me. And I was like, it was always kind of like, I wear wash and goes because that's how I like to wear my hair. It's the type of things I had the time for as a mom at 27, as somebody got divorced at 30. It was what I had the space and the energy for. And what you touched on, the no oils, no butters, was so funny. It was never no oils, no butters.
Okay.
It was initially the 30-day hair detox. And the reason why, because this is also part of the very nuanced part that I think gets lost because it's been 10 years, is that the goal was for 30 days to remove raw shea butter, raw coconut oil, raw castor oil, and Eco Styler. And it's not that Eco Styler was bad. It's just how it was being used in that era.
Yeah, and
so,
people were using raw. I mean, I used to be guilty of that. I don't do that no more, girl. I ain't using no raw nothing no more. But
they be in the grocery store. Like, this is cooking grease. This is cooking oil, and you're putting it in your hair. And you're doing it every day. And so we have to go back to what was occurring in the space at that time. And that's what I was seeing in the salon. So it was like 30 days of not doing that, of learning your hair. It was actually really an education-focused thing put into a challenge, because in that time span, 2014 to about 2016, everybody was doing challenges. So if you went natural in 2020, you would not know that a challenge was almost like a Trojan horse. And we would send education to people. And honestly, we created second jobs for ourselves. We were answering emails late into the night, every night. So we codified it into a course that, you know what? Praise the Lord for things being janky in 2016, because it was filmed with no lighting in my really terrible kitchen that had no furniture. Meanwhile, we're in this fancy place today. So but let's talk about how natural hair has risen up since then.
Right.
But it was a challenge for 30 days. And we said, if you like what's happening, continue where you are. If you don't, bring back what you used to do. Yeah. Here are some alternatives that we use in the salon. Yeah. It wasn't meant to be a do this. It was mostly an if this, then that, which is a much different framework. Yeah. And with that, we would spend hours on social media answering questions for free. We would also be in our community answering questions, providing more resources, re-recording, bringing nuance, doing all those different things. And that was from 2016 to 2022 for me. Yeah. I left in 2022 mentally. Physical split was done in 2023 to focus on training professionals, because what was happening, we had licensed professionals in the consumer program because they had clients coming to them that they wanted to serve, but they're like, I don't know. There's more things I need to know. So that has even developed itself from where we were in 2017 of doing our first class. Not 2017. When did we do our first class? It was 2017 of doing the first pro class. Yeah. To where it is now, because the curriculum has changed based on who the student has been. And so one thing that I find, we don't tend to give each other grace. We don't give each other time to learn, and we don't give each other time to grow, especially when we are bootstrapped minority women-owned businesses who are not funded, who are not supported. And I am incredibly proud of the fact of the people we've touched, from folks who have been emboldened to wear their hair natural to now their children don't know anything different.
Like my babies.
Don't know anything different. My daughter is like, your hair is fluffy like mine. And just to hear her say that, I know that's a thing.
My babies do not want to cut their hair. I said, okay. We're going to keep braiding his hair.
But you got to let me comb it.
Oh, my gosh. My little boys love their natural hair. And I didn't know my natural hair until I was like 19. And didn't know how to really even do it. You know what I mean? It was figuring that out. So yeah, no, I'm so grateful to you, Aeleise, and the work that you've done in the community. If no one tells you, here's your flowers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
Anytime. And thank you for coming on the pod. I'm super grateful you've been here. Oh, where can people find you?
I am working on how I want to show up in the world right now. Currently, you can find me on Instagram at @HairLoveArt. I'm not there. But you can also find my website, Aeleise, AELEISE, Janae.com.
Thank you so much, Aeleise. And thank you guys for listening to Fox After 40. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And please check out CurlMix. We can both attest to how amazing the products are. Thank you. Yes, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.